Cool. All right. Whole panel's here. So let's do introductions and I'll let you all introduce yourselves so I don't screw anything up. I am not a professional moderator. So we will start from left to right, starting with Kyle, going all the way to Jody. And yeah, just give us like, I guess the 60-second, you could definitely go over a little bit if you want, but try to keep it tight. Introduction about you and sort of your billing model, your practice. And then we can go through each person and then jump into some substantive questions. Kyle, go for it.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Kyle Westaway. I run a firm imaginatively called Westaway. And we are a firm that works with early stage founders. And before I was a lawyer, I was a founder myself. So I set out to build a founder-friendly law firm whenever we started 18 years ago. And we kicked off in January of 2008. And since then, we've never billed an hour. So everything we've done has been on flat fees or subscriptions. That's what we're up to.
Awesome. Ryan, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Ryan Giuliano. I founded Darwin Legal in July 2025, so still pretty young, to focus in on a subscription-based model. I was billing by the hour for the 15 years before that and decided to go all in on moving away from it. We have a stage and size-based subscription model for what I'm calling a fractional law department. So I'm the chief legal officer. We get task execution and also having a legal ops foundation that comes as well. And I have gone through a few model detail pivots in my short time here, but it's mostly working for now. So I'm excited to talk about some of those early learnings and tribulations I've had.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. Alina, you're up next.
Great. I'm Alina Lee, and I own Aspire Law, and we have 8 attorneys and 5 staff. 90% of our revenue comes from enterprise clients. So I think maybe my twist on this conversation is going to be how this conversation maybe is handled with enterprise clients with very sophisticated in-house lawyers, and their needs and concerns are very different from, I think, like non-attorneys who are like, owning and operating a business. So I do still primarily bill hourly, but I do have clients who agree to various types of fixed fees and subscription based services. And I'm happy to talk about that from both on the small business side, but also enterprise side.
Awesome.
All right. Hey, I'm Michael. Started our firm TIL Partners a couple of years ago. We focus on investment funds and special purpose vehicles, and now we do other stuff like corporate M&A, VC financings, all that sort of stuff. But for the first couple of years, when investment funds was really the main pillar, about 80% or so of our revenue came from just 2 products, which is fund formation or SPV formation. And so that's what I'll talk about later. They're flat fee projects which have a bit of an accordion feature to them if clients start getting out of control. But in general, we stick to the flat fees. So happy to talk about that later.
Cool. Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about sort of the expanding nature of some of these projects and how we prevent or work with it. So thanks for mentioning that. And Jody, maybe you have the most unique and interesting spin of all, but round us out and then we can get started.
Thanks. I'm Jody Winter. I'm the founder CEO at Lloyd Winter PC. Our mission is to provide access to justice. So man's justice, God's justice. We do that through flat monthly billing on our civil litigation matters from our offices in Fresno and Dallas. Flat monthly billing on civil litigation, because this is the topic, it's tiered based on the amount of controversy. That's how we provide that access to justice piece. So looking forward to being here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you all. So yeah, I mean, the panel was selected because there really is a good spread of, I mean, I think a lot of people will look at flat fees or subscriptions or these types of billing arrangements and find a reason why it doesn't work for their particular practice area or style of practice. And I think having this good spread of panelists who've implemented it in different ways, corporate, there's litigation, there's Alina does all types of things, marketing, sort of different subject matter areas. So they've all done it differently. So hopefully you can see a part of your practice in one of these panelists or many of them, and figure out ways to implement it yourself. So thank you all, I guess, for joining. Let me get this screen share off now, so that we can see everybody. So let's get started with some questions. So the first one is really around like your aha moment. So at some point, each one of you all took a stand against traditional style of practice and billing. And I want to get to understand like what that moment was, when you said, this is with, maybe it was you recognize a trend in technology, a trend in sort of like the appetite for clients to subscribe to something, or do project-based billing. What was that moment for you? When was it? And maybe describe like what you were reading, I guess, in the tea leaves to make the switch. Whoever wants to go first, go for it. And if no one chooses, I'll choose somebody.
I can go. Oh, someone else unmuted them. All right, fine. You muted yourself again. Cool. So I kind of had like two moments on opposite sides, I guess. And so what I mean is that when I was in Big Law, we once quoted a client 50K to raise a fund. It cost like 120K. And the client just loved us until that point. And then you send 120K invoice and like any goodwill is immediately murdered and everybody's sad. And I really didn't like that. So that was kind of the first part. And then the second part, and this might be different for different practice areas, but for us at least, forming a fund is complicated and complex, but there's generally the same sorts of things you have to do every time. And so we kind of realized that it's more fun to optimize for efficiency on our own side and try to form a fund as quickly and as efficiently as possible, which obviously is not incentivized with hourly billing. So we kind of ran the math and just found that like if our rates were X before, we can make like 2X or 3X if we do flat fees and just get like outrageously efficient. So we kind of, up our own floor by raising our own effective rates, but we also like chop off the ceiling from outrageous bills that go to clients. So it was kind of from two ends from us.
Awesome. There's similar experiences, I imagine, with some of you. Anyone else have a good example of their aha moment?
My aha moment was meeting Kyle and having him gently yell at me for my hourly billing and push me into it. And seriously, he was kind of the first one who's like, "Why are you doing it this way?" That kind of opened the door, and I saw the different toxic facets of hourly billing. On the positive end, it's really simple. You just do the work, turn the clock on, and you don't have to think about the other things. Everything else can be problematic. And I think from my perspective, I was always really interested in efficiencies that I could add to my service and how can I get more value for my time. But there's this kind of really toxic trick that hourly billing pulls on your brain where you're not thinking about value delivery so much as you're like, did I hit my personal quota for number of hours billed in a day? And that is so detached from client value that it that was kind of the pinhole that seemed to make me want to kind of bring everything else down. And I can talk about a dozen other reasons why. I think our hourly billing is problematic and other models are better, but I think that's the biggest one, kind of the the trick that hourly billing pulls on your brain. And I think once you toggle to, instead of how do I bill as many hours as possible at the highest rate possible, from that to, okay, I'm billing my client this much for this work or for this period of time. Now, how can I deliver that as efficiently and effectively as possible? It actually flips the time calculus to drive you to both invest in long-term efficiencies, but also deliver as efficiently as possible in the long term, in the short term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, both of you touched on just the concept of it's better for the client, and the incentives are more aligned to client value and client happiness. So it's interesting. You hear a lot about, at least on LinkedIn, people will bark at you and say, do subscriptions because it gives you more work-life balance, and it creates like a better environment for you and your firm, and it changes the nature of your firm. And a lot of the information is like how it will change your firm, but not so much about how it allows you to deliver a better end product to your clients. So it's cool to see both of those. Alina, I see you came off mute.
Yeah, for me, I was in-house at a Fortune 500 company called Southern Company, and I was then in-house at a tech marketing company called MailChimp. And for me, you know, when I was the one engaging outside counsel, I was the one reviewing and approving bills and making hiring and firing decisions. And, you know, having to be accountable to my manager and chief legal officer for my budget, my outside counsel spend, became very clear to me that I guess my spin on this is, like I said, my firm still does primarily hourly billing, but the real root issue from an enterprise level perspective, I think, is just predictability. My clients never want to be shocked or surprised, like unhappily surprised by the bill. The bill should be a reasonable bill, or it should be lower than reasonable. And if it's going to be even remotely above what is like, so first of all, to me, that means whenever a client asks me to do work, I clearly give them an ETA. I'm going to get this initial version back to you by this date, and an estimate. It's going to cost about X. And if that changes, I, as soon as possible, notify them, hey, it's going to be a little more. And so that way, like, they know well before they receive the monthly bill. And sometimes, like, if I know the client is picky, sometimes the client will say, like, hey, I want a fixed rate. Let's go ahead and lock in that quote. And, you know, I agree to that sometimes. And if I don't feel super confident about how it's going to go, say, because it's like a contract and there's opposing counsel involved and I just can't predict what opposing counsel is going to do, I'll hedge a bit on that quote that I provide. But to me, the name of the game is no surprises and no surprise bills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about the hedging stuff in a bit, because there's definitely an element of that. I think we all need to kind of keep our head on a swivel. But I had a very similar experience to you, in that I was in-house, and my aha moment for starting Hey Counsel was literally having that shock and awe experience when I got a bill from Big Law and just being like, I know they were well intentioned, I know we were well intentioned, but how did it get so out of hand? And I just felt like that's more or less on the margin. That's how your experience with a big law firm is going to be because of the incentive structure. You're going to go over, and sometimes what they think is a little over, you feel is a lot over, and there's a lot of stress. So I always felt like Hey Counsel needed to be the way in which we can wrangle a lot of boutique and small firms and make them accessible to businesses, both big and small. So it's funny, Hey Counsel has changed so much since I started it, but that was the original aha moment maybe 6 years ago. But Jody, I saw you come off mute. I know you want to chime in here.
Sure. Yeah, our aha moment was at the end of 2018. We had done only hourly billing prior to that. I had done only hourly as an associate. And then when I started the firm first year, 2012, we were hourly until 2018. And 2018, we had a collection rate of approximately 55%. So you just can't run a business when you're only collecting about half of what you're billing. And that was due to a lot of factors that hourly billing is not good at solving. You can get into litigation that you can't get out of. You have to go to trial on cases you're not getting paid on. It's not ideal. And so at the end of 2018, we also had an access to justice issue. We had potential clients contact us that wanted representation with smaller amounts in controversy, and we were turning them down at the time. And so we looked at ourselves and said, why are we turning down clients that want to hire us simply because their amounts in controversy are smaller? We have to figure out a different way to do this so that we can provide this access to justice. This is why I went to law school. This is why I became an attorney, to help people like this. And they're good clients. They want to pay me, but we can't do it on an hourly basis. So we got to figure out a different way to do it. And so we did. Started with flat monthly billing on a tiered structure, like I mentioned, first of the year 2019.
Very cool. Kyle, you want to round us out?
Yeah, I think kind of like Alina, my aha moment was being on the other side, being the client. When I was living my earlier life as a startup founder, we worked with attorneys, and I couldn't quite wrap my head around the fact that these are like professional people that are really smart and really like put together, but they couldn't figure out how much to charge me for an independent contractor agreement. Like that just didn't make much sense for me. And just feeling the pain of the surprise legal bill was just so jarring that I was just like, man, I don't, it doesn't seem like rocket science to just say like, hey, what if for most things we'll say even, we're just going to do it on a flat fee. And so, yeah, I launched with that as a kind of a core proposition for how to build something that would work better for early stage companies. And I got a lot of pushback from my peers that this was going to be stupid. I was going to lose my shirt, and that there's no way this thing was going to survive. But I thought maybe they're right. And for a while, it looked very much like they were right. I'm really glad I made that choice.
Awesome. I want to get into some of the nuts and bolts stuff. So the first question has to do with sort of the risks involved in doing these types of models. So things come to mind like scope creep, and setting up guardrails to make sure that scope creep doesn't happen. I guess let's start with the folks who focus mostly on project-based billing. So that would be Mike. I'm sure Alina, you have a decent share of that, and Kyle. But let's start with Mike. How do you prevent, I guess, like what you said, the accordion kind of stretching too big for some of these projects that should be kind of limited in scope?
Yeah, is it cool if I share my screen?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right, let's see. Nope, you've
I can't.
disabled me, sir.
All right, 1 second.
Handcuffed me.
Share. Oh no.
I can see it on my end. I have a green button at the bottom.
Oh, yep. Here you
Yeah.
go. Boom. You got it. You're good.
Look at that. All right, let me know and you can see this, please.
I can see it.
All right, cool. So we basically send this sort of thing to clients before we even talk to them on the phone, to make sure that they are in the same universe as we are, which we learned that the hard way by doing a lot of calls that went nowhere. But to the specific question on scope creep, we basically have we just think we're like a SaaS product, basically. At least that's how we lay it out. So we give people small, medium, large. What do you want? And this is for kind of a normal fund formation. And so basically, people will always be like, well, I don't need that much stuff. And so we say, fine, if you don't need that much stuff, we give you the cheap version, and then, there's the middle version and the high version. And so we basically say, this is the stuff you get if you want to use this tier of pricing. And then if you want X, Y, and Z, you can take it off the menu if you want to. And there's certain menu prices for certain things. Like if you want, well, if you're not in funds, you probably don't know what some of the stuff is. But if you want a fancy agreement as opposed to a simple agreement for something, then you can pay us, $5,000, for example, for this sort of thing. Now, if there's something that has an X through it, or a dash rather, then we just bill by the hour, and then we put our billable rates downstairs here, and people just pay by the hour. So over time, as you can probably imagine, it's kind of like any legal contract where you have one client who wants X, and you're like, oh, should have excluded that, didn't think of that. So our actual contract, every time that somebody gets us on something, we'll kind of add another Roman numeral for placement agent negotiations aren't included. That's billed by the hour. So what we really like to do is only do the flat fee. And maybe this is different from other people on the call, and I'll see, but we really only do flat fees for stuff that we've done 50 times. And not only have we done 50 times, but things where we have it automated. So if we have to figure something out that's new, we will not do a flat fee on that. And so for that, we always bill by the hour. Just from kind of but that is still a very small percentage of our revenue. And just from a client service perspective, the billable stuff is a low percentage. From a client service perspective, if we're going to bill 2,000 hours or so, $2,000 worth of stuff for somebody on a 40K flat fee, we just don't charge them for it. We don't charge our clients for a lot of things that we would otherwise charge them for. We just like them to be happy and refer us to their friends and stuff. So for us, it's really trial and error. One more time, we will not do flat fees anymore for something that's not this, basically. So if someone's like, hey, I have this project, and in my head, I'm like, it's kind of like this, it's kind of like this, it's kind of like this, but it's not directly in our wheelhouse. We just bill by the hour for that, because otherwise it could just, get a little bit out of control. So I'm happy to answer any questions about this. I do find that providing very clear documents to people and saying this is how it works, this is how it works, they really like that. So to the extent you can create visuals for your clients for project-based stuff, they like that. So that's my
Michael, I've got a question.
Yeah.
Why do you send this to somebody over email? Why wouldn't you just have this online so that people can see it and screen out everybody that is not going to be a good fit for this?
We've considered it. I mean, ultimately, sometimes we're going to change our prices, and so I don't know. It's not a terrible idea, certainly. But we do make sure everybody sees it before we talk to them. And I guess since we're kind of on this topic, just to be very specific about what we do, because I think this is I don't know, I'm kind of proud of our system here. When somebody does want to get on the phone with us, we send them all sorts of stuff up front. So we send them this up front. We send them a pre-recorded video where I basically talk through this, and I'm like, this is how you form a fund, blah, 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 blah. And the music is bad, but the content is good. And so they know how we work. We send them the pricing, like I said. We send them a calendar link that's only with the particular people who would be on that sort of call based on how much money they're trying to raise. So we kind of tranche it based on how high value the potential client is for us. And it's all basically automated. And we also send them this book we wrote on investment funds, so they think that we're fancy. And so we basically hit them with as much as we can up front, so that when they get on the call, they're like, okay, we know what we're doing. Here's our engagement letter information. Yeah, what's up, Kyle? Do you have another question? Oh, you're clapping. All right. Sorry.
I'm just clapping at you, dude. I'm just celebrating you. I'm celebrating you.
My eyes are pretty bad. I thought that was a question. Yeah.
I think it's amazing how much work, the difference between a firm that does something in the manner, and there's probably not a lot that do it in the manner you do it, where there's so much work done up front and so much communication up front that once the client's done with that, there's two things that happen. One, you weed out everybody who isn't the right fit, but two, they're probably a hell yes, or a hell no, but that's the weeding out. But it's so different from having an initial consult with the lawyer and then getting an engagement letter with an hourly rate on it, because then they're just kind of left in the same position. I don't know How much is this going to cost? We haven't scoped anything. I don't like, I'm signing a document that says, yes, I'm going to work with you, but I don't even know what it's going to entail. I mean, it's amazing that you've put it into just like this format that gives people so much upfront information that they become an informed buyer, and usually probably a hell yes. So it's like part sales tactic too. It's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a sales tactic. I mean, like at the end of the day, like if you looked at the prices on the front of the sheet, like we're not doing this for free. You know, like these are not like low price. I mean, they're low compared to like the big law firms I've worked for. But like what we've found is that like clients just want to know what they're doing. They want you to be like, this is how it works. This is how we're going to do it. Follow me. We'll do it for you. And so like a lot of, obviously many clients will optimize for price, but a lot of clients will just optimize for, I want to know what we're doing. And as you said, just billable rates with no parameters, just like, well, like you can't budget for that.
Yeah, it's one part of the equation. It's just one variable. It's not the whole thing. All right, I know I see a lot of questions coming in. I don't know if we're gonna have time to run through all of those. Very unlikely. So I will gather them and send them to the group as well, so we can answer them after the call. But Ryan, do you have to jump right now? I know you have a kind of. Can I go to Alina and then jump to you for
Yeah.
the subscription stuff? All right,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Alina, I want to.
I can stay for the whole hour now too. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I guess like kind of a slight twist on this conversation is I think just the importance of providing a clear estimate on the front end. Actually, the vast majority of my clients know that I'm very efficient and know that generally I actually, because I try to under promise and over deliver, that my estimate is pretty conservative and I'm probably going to come under that. And so they also know that if they want a fixed fee, I'm going to add an extra 15 to 20% on that. So the vast majority of my clients don't want the fixed fee. They want me to bill hourly because they know that they're going to save money actually by choosing my hourly rate. It also reduces my risk, right? It also, another way to think about it is it makes the client want to be more efficient as well. Whereas I've had the experience where on a flat fee, they're like, oh, well, it's already flat fee. So I'm just going to start asking a million questions and like want to have more calls or longer calls. So it kind of also like, I think, because I have I think a good reputation of consistently billing slightly under my quoted rates, the client trusts me to take good care of them. And so I generally don't have to provide flat rates for that reason. So that's just kind of like a bit of a flip side to it. But I allow my clients to choose whichever option they want.
Got it. And yeah, I mean, I think it is interesting. There are like the billable rate is not, or the hourly rate is not all bad, right? It does create incentives in a different direction. And I sometimes love having an hourly rate buffer between me and the client, so that they are more efficient. But yeah, I appreciate that perspective. Ryan, I want to jump to you and Jody about sort of like outside of project-based world. Now we're in subscription land. It's a little bit different of a calculus because it's almost like you're promising consistent access to you. And with that comes the risk of some clients taking a little bit more of your time than other clients, and really like using and potentially abusing. So I want to understand a little bit how you protect yourself in a subscription-based model. And then Jody, will jump to you for the same question because yours with litigation, I'm sure, tension and temperature is a little bit higher. So yeah, Ryan, maybe you can start, and then Jody, you can finish up.
Yeah, with my model, I'll kind of just kind of explain some background context and then get into actually answering your question. So with my model, what I wanted to eliminate was meter anxiety. The idea that a client would hold back some legal question or task or project back from the lawyer because they're being charged on the margin for it, and potentially even worse, they don't know what they're being charged on the margin for it. So I wanted to open up that line of communication. So what I advertise is unlimited consultations. And what that means in practice, though, is it's not we're going to talk constantly and I'm going to pick up the call every time. It means if you email me, you Slack me, you call me, I will get back to you within one business day. And I might only have 15 to 30 minutes to talk to you, and you kind of use it that day and it's done. So I'm setting boundaries. I'm basically like time boxing for each of my clients. This may change over time as I scale, but the way that I'm kind of working with my clients is that I have a limited number of clients, and I'm allocating somewhere between 0 minutes and 60 minutes a day, targeting like 30 minutes for each of them. If you call me, I'm probably not going to make progress on the contract that you want to draft. But otherwise, I do the first deliverable that's in the queue, if it's a contract review, contract draft, and each client of mine gets a queue of what their work in progress is with me. And I'll do at least one thing per day for them. So if you send me 100 things, we can do 100 things, but they're going on the queue, and you need to understand that I'm going to do the first thing first, and then the second thing second, and they're going to come out in time. I'm not going to do everything immediately. So that's the way that I've been preventing the overload. I'm basically making a small enough doorway so that they can't send too much stuff through, and that's how I'm kind of rate limiting it, which kind of ends up being a way that I can control and set boundaries.
Awesome. Yeah, I see Jody nodding your head. So you want to
Yeah.
down on that?
Yeah, scope creep is a problem. So in our engagement agreement, we limit the scope of the engagement to the litigation or dispute that we have. And so we're not being hired for all litigations. We're not general counsel. We have one agreement per dispute. So the engagement agreement has a scope section, which is one of the few sections that we edit on every engagement. And it says we have a dispute with party X, and we're being hired at Y monthly fee for that dispute, depending on the amount in controversy. And that way, if there's an additional dispute that shows up that they have with another party Z, then that's not part of this engagement, and they get a second flat monthly fee for us to handle that. And that's just how you have to do that in the engagement agreement and in the consult to make sure that they understand that you're hiring us at this flat monthly fee for this dispute, for this litigation. The other thing that's really important for litigation is trial. Trial is the exception to the rule, and it goes hourly. So you can spend as much time in trial as you did in the entire litigation leading up to that point. So we will switch to hourly billing approximately 60 days before trial, but trial is, like I said, the exception. In California, your chance of a jury trial is 0.21%. So there's very, very unlikely to ever get to civil jury trial. And most of your cases are going to resolve at some point before that. So you're litigating, not in trial. And if they want to go to trial, that's fine. It's going to switch, and we'll bill hourly for trial.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, the common theme that I'm hearing all the way back to just when Michael was talking and through basically everyone else's is like there's an insane amount of pre-work and organization that you have to do. So a lot of investment when you're establishing these programs or these flat fee projects, really kind of like thinking through all the different ways and it could go wrong or right, but also really prepping clients from the outset. So it just seems like the organization is key, the documentation is key, having systems in place is absolutely key. It's not something you kind of just like willy-nilly go into. I'm sure there is a ton of trial and error. in these, and that teaches you kind of where things can go wrong next. But there is a lot of like upfront investment that I think each one of you all have done and continue to do in order to make these things successful. Kyle, I want to let you jump in because you straddle the world between subscription and flat fee. So I'm curious if you have anything additional to add on in terms of how to set proper guardrails or prevent scope creep or any of that.
You know, I've been doing subscriptions for a decade. This January is 10 years of us doing subscriptions, and I've done it with over 100 clients. And we have found that in general, we don't get taken advantage of. Like, it's a very rare case that we're taken advantage of. We're really, obviously that goes into like really clear on scope. You get these 11 agreements from a drafting perspective. This is what a contract review looks like. This is how many you get of them per month, and you have access to us when you need us. You can just we have a specific link for our subscription clients that they can just set up a call when they need to, or send us an email when they need to, and we haven't had any issues with it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good to hear. I think there is a lot of like concern, but maybe in reality, it's not as big of a problem as
Well,
it may
I
seem.
will say, like, we do kind of a review at the end of every year with our internally with clients. And as we're coming up towards, we have a annual subscription. So as we're coming up towards the end of the year, we're kind of like internally being like, they seemed like they were a heavy use client. Let's look back on the log and see how heavy they used us this year. And you kind of run the numbers and you're like, okay, cool. Yeah, we're happy to continue to work with you. You have to bump up to the next tier next year if you want to work with us, because you did use us very heavily last year, and you got great value. You know, we probably still made a profit on you, but we got less value out of you than we otherwise would. And we just had that conversation in December with a client, and they decided to roll off, and we were like, that sounds like a good idea, and all the best, you know. They were a very needy client, but within the scope of what we set forth, and yeah, so it was good. It all works, and we have a kind of annual opportunity to say we're not interested in working with you anymore.
Really kindly put. No, that's great. And there needs, I think Ryan left, but we were talking a little bit about pruning, like even healthy bushes need pruning, and that's goes for your practice. Sometimes you gotta prune away to make sure that the bush is getting, or the tree is getting the most out of itself as possible. So terrible analogy, but that's take it for what it's worth.
I was going to say, I think Kyle is a little more generous than me. My firm also does a lot of secondment work. So that just means like one of our attorneys is embedded in one of our enterprise clients' legal teams. And a lot of times, though, almost all of the time, those are fixed fee. So, you know, it's a flat rate per month or a flat rate per week. And they can start or stop whenever they want. But whenever I do that, I always include, like I always say, that's for this specific range, and the price point's in the middle. So that means like, hey, I'm agreeing to take on this risk on this upper end. You're taking on the risk on this lower end if you're not using us to the full potential that you could be using us. And but I also always include an out. So it's like, basically it's like, usually it's something, depending on how long we've been working with this client, it's usually something like 3 months. It's like, hey, if I reserve the right, like if I feel like things are going off the rails, I can revisit the pricing in 3 months. And that, you know, that also, again, it just kind of keeps the client in line, is really more. I've never had to really exercise it, but actually exercise that right. But what I like is, because it's in my like engagement letter, I can point back at it and say like, hey, I noticed these things aren't exactly what we had initially discussed. So do you want to go ahead and proactively address this now by changing the rate proactively? Or, you know, do you want to try to move this work to someone else on your team, something like that? And the problem just goes away usually. So I've never had to actually like end a secondment. It just allows me to more easily have that conversation.
I like that, Alina. On our letter of engagement, we have a 60-day out clause on the front end. So the first 60 days, if there's like a clear no fit on either side can pull the trigger, and there's a mechanism for how they would pay us if we've done more work than they've paid us. But after that 60 days, we are committed to go the distance, and we've, I think, in history of the firm, have had 2 people use that out clause. So it's not something that's used all that often, but it's good to have there.
That's great. All these great little practical nuggets. I want to pivot really quickly to systems and tools, technology, things that enable us to do these types of things more effectively. Obviously, the name of the game in subscription and flat fee is having a certain level of efficiency so that these things are profitable and you can do enough work to make the client happy. So are there any tools that you use or systems that you can describe that are like absolute game changers for you, that if someone was starting this up today, you would point them in the direction of using said tool or setting up a system for X? Just curious, like what are those for each one of your firms? So let's start with Michael Hughesby. Will you maybe talk a little bit about the systems you have in place or things that you would recommend?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the first technology is like a very old technology that everybody knows, and it's just forms. So like form emails, form documents, like we're like a factory. Even before technology comes into the play. So like if you don't have like really detailed, comprehensive forms, like I would start with that. The next level up is we use something called Gavel, like the thing that you bang on the table. And it's basically a document automation program. So it takes a long time to code, but it's not that bad. And frankly, I don't do it, but that's why you have associates. Gavel is really cool. So you can build kind of multi-doc workflows. So if you have something like a fund, or for example, if you're going to do like a Series A financing package or whatever other people do, you can we have like a questionnaire of like 50 points, which are all, we get that from a term sheet call with a client. That call takes like an hour, but that's like teaching clients how things work. So that's important. We take all that, we put it into the 50 fields, and it basically spits out like the 2 very complicated documents that you need to start a fund, and then like the 10 easy ones. So we basically have, like when I was in Big Law at the end of my stint there, 2 years ago, I could do the 2 complicated documents in, let's say, 5 hours, let's say. And like, that was pretty good, 5 hours. But like, I just did it like a month ago with our workflow, and I did it in less than an hour. So like, it takes a long time to code up front, but then you have a factory. And like, at least in my opinion, like if you're going to do flat fees, you don't want to do flat fees without a factory. So Gavel is really good. We use Zapier to stitch a bunch of different software together. That's more for like lead intake. So like that stitches into Clio Grow, something built on Lovable that one of our guys built, Calendly, and it's just like Zapier is great. If you're not using Calendly, use Calendly. That's kind of low-hanging fruit as far as scheduling goes. We use like 4 different LLMs, but mostly GCAI, which I saw that you partnered with, which is awesome because it's so expensive. Everybody needs a discount. But I would say like Gavel is the biggest thing for us, I would say. So I'll stop my rant.
So forms, automations, connecting systems, that's like table stakes stuff. Anyone have tools to add to that equation?
Yeah, I'll go. So obviously Clio law practice management software, Clio Grow. We're using self-built intake. The stuff that really works for a flat monthly fee is making sure that, like Kyle said, you're not getting taken advantage of. And that's not only a technology thing, that's a team thing. But yeah, we use Ring Central, CallRail, you name it. Like if it's a technology it's going to help us, then we're game to use it. The one that really I'm excited about for flat monthly billing, and I think it is an industry-wide consideration, is how to use AI in the flat monthly billing context. This is important because you're going to have a push towards immediate immediate results with AI. Everybody's asking for things to be done yesterday. And so the only way that that works better for us as attorneys is if we can be more efficient and make more money when we're more efficient. Well, that requires a flat monthly billing or a subscription type program. Otherwise, you know, there's no benefit to the attorney to be more efficient when you're billing by the hour. You're fighting over fewer clients, and that's an industry-wide problem. So we've tried to use and are using ChatGPT and Grok, you know, in order to try and make things more efficient.
Any other AI? Obviously, everyone's an AI advocate at this point, in some respect. But any other kind of like novel use cases for AI or ways you see it creeping in that aren't entirely obvious to your firm, or maybe they are obvious and worth just like trumpeting more. But curious how AI has really kind of impacted your workflows or your the way in which you're doing the work.
Brian, I've just got a philosophical take, not a tactical take, which is I would be very surprised that if for many firms that are billing by the hour, if they don't see their revenues drop by like 30 to 40% by 2030. I think that the firms that will win in this unleashing of this amazing intelligence that's happening right now are the folks that are harnessing it and surfing with the wave of technology. And I'm so excited for everybody on this call. If you're going flat fee, or if you're going more towards that, or if you're going towards subscription fees, you're going to see your profits soar and your firm soar in a world in which if you're selling time, your firm is going to start to suddenly not grow as much as it used to. So I am a true believer that if you're selling time, AI is value destructive. If you're selling outcomes, AI is value creative.
Mm-hmm.
I like that philosophy. I'll add a quick addendum or a slight addition to it, which is something that we've at least found important. Because I think that like Kyle's totally right. And I think a lot of that rests on efficiency. Because ultimately, like if you can do the thing better than somebody else, like eventually the market's a weighing machine and people will go to you. I do think that the thing that I want to add is that I would make sure that you take enough time to market yourself well, however you find that to be successful for you. Because what I do think can happen, and probably is happening at least in some parts of the market, is that there'll be just like a total race to the bottom as far as prices go. And it's like, well, I'll do it for $11, I'll do it for $10, I'll do it for $9, and like that's not a game, at least that I want to be playing. And so as you free up more time, I think it's important to like, you know, do old fashioned things like, and this isn't like, I guess, a billing strategy, but like, you know, like go meet people in person, post stuff on LinkedIn, you know, do things to make yourself like seem like an expert. Because at that point, if you can combine like that kind of marketing strategy with the efficiency, I think that's really like where stuff gets exciting.
Well, and just to jump in on that, like it's not only the marketing, it's just like what we have to offer, especially like most people on this call who have like a really decent amount of career under their belt and are just like awesome at what they're doing. What we have to offer is our expert judgment, right? That's the thing that sets us apart and sets our prices, should set our prices in the long haul. It doesn't matter to the client how we get to the executed document if they get that, is my thesis. Like they're hiring us because we have expert judgment, and all the better if they can get the expert judgment, then push button document gets created. You know, like that's a win for them, and they should want to pay. There's an argument that they should pay more for that, right? So I think that the key thing is the value is our expert judgment. The tactics and delivery are, especially if you're doing flat fee, are all just about how do we express that judgment quickly and consistently and at a high quality level, right?
I'm just going to kind of tack on to what I think Kyle is saying, kind of looping back to the earlier question about the systems. I guess the way that I kind of think about systems is kind of twofold. One is kind of to Kyle's point, I think my clients are paying me for my business acumen as well. And so therefore, it's quite common that if I feel like a client is operating inefficiently internally, I'll actually point out and say, like, look, your competitors are being way more efficient. Like, this is actually how the tech dev team should operate. They need to be following these steps, or like they're taking too long on this or that, or they're skipping steps here, or they're or whatever. And then I actually help them from a business perspective change the way they're operating internally so that they can save money and move faster internally. And also, like, because I work with so many marketing teams, I also tell them, like, look, this is the process that you got to follow from like a marketing, like, this is what your marketing team needs to be doing before it gets to legal, or they need to be looping me in here, here, and here, and not at these other points. And we're all going to move way faster and save a lot more money across the line. So I guess I'll say, like, I'm not afraid to proactively, I'm not going to do it on day one, but after I get to know the client and I start to see where things are kind of going off the rails, I'll just tell them, like, look, this is what other people are doing better than you. You can do what you want with that information. And a lot of my clients do actually make internal structural business changes, and are very, very pleased. And then the second thing related to systems, kind of a similar vein, but not exactly, I think where you're going with this, Ryan, is I help my clients create better processes and create streamlined templates, and I help them create playbooks, and I teach them how to do like the easy day-to-day stuff. And yeah, you know what, maybe in the short term that reduces the number of billable hours, but you know what it does is it builds like deep trust. My clients know I care deeply about them, and they know that's worth more than that's worth a lot to them. So they're going to stick with me for years and years and years. And so, like, then now this client that could theoretically be a client for like 5 matters is now my client for the next 5 to 10 years. And there's a huge upside to helping your client save money and them seeing the tremendous value of having you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll just jump in there real quick. I think I completely agree with Alina and Kyle and Michael on this. The flat monthly or subscription or even flat fee pricing allows us to align our interests with the client's interests. They're hiring us in litigation. They hire us to either win the case or resolve the dispute, right? And they don't hire me to bill hours. So if we can figure out a way where we align our interests, flat monthly does that so that we're still getting paid, but they don't have to worry about me nickel and diming them for every time they call, like, or send an email. Then we're going to align our interests and we're going to come to the result that they actually hired me for a lot quicker.
I want to really quick pivot before we wrap things up. In terms of setting prices on the subscription side of things, there was actually like a thread, totally random, but coincidentally right before this, in our Slack community, that focused a lot on pricing and how we come to certain pricing arrangements, specifically around like subscriptions. Is there something more to it than just kind of like providing maybe a discounted rate on your standard, what you would view your standard hourly rate? How do you come to a certain pricing decision? Paul like resurfaced this and asked, like, there are obviously there's more of a market for some flat rate things out there now, but some things are kind of less commoditized, or there's a less clear market. So how do if either any of you want to talk more about the subscription side of things, how do you come to a subscription pricing? What's your process generally like?
I'll go real quick. So the way that we started this is dividing your monthly revenue and your annual revenue by the total number of open matters by month and by year. That gives you your average case value by month. And once you have that, then you can say, okay, well, that's our average. What would it look like to build, like Michael did, a SaaS style tiered program of small, medium, large engagements, so that we can basically come to that same average, or even better, like Kyle mentioned, can we increase that so that we are increasing our revenues and getting the client what they are actually hiring us for.
Awesome. I know we're pushing the limit, so I do want to wrap this up. I think we have a ton. Yeah, Kyle, you got to jump. We have a ton of questions in this thread. I know Alina's been popping in too and answering some, so thank you. I will circulate these questions with the panel, and we'll try to get to them so that no question is left unanswered over time. The beauty of this is everyone here is in Hay Council. If you do want to reach out, obviously be respectful of the time. Imagine they're going to get a decent amount of questions after this, but these are members of the community, so do feel free to reach out to them, reach out to me with questions. And thanks so much to the panel. I can't thank you enough for taking time away from your actually busy days and real lives and bringing your expertise here. So thanks. Mike, Alina, Jody, Kyle, and Ryan for joining.
Cool. Thanks, Brian.
All right. See y'all.
Thanks, everyone.